Okay, boxing fanatics. So, Anthony Joshua makes his return against Jermaine Franklin and wins a 12 round unanimous decision. Interesting, very interesting. It's fair to say Joshua started the fight very cagey, very tentatively. I think it was probably obvious from the opening bell that he was still kind of suffering with some demons. And yeah, I think we saw that in the early stages of the fight. Joshua looked, yeah, tentative, nervous, and I actually thought a little bit slow as well. I mean, we all know he, weighed in at kind of career heaviest weight, and I think that actually reflected a little bit. He did seem a bit slower. I don't think he had as much spring in his step, especially in the early stages of the fight. He was just a little bit flat-footed, and you know, kind of unwilling to commit. I think when everyone kind of saw this fight was made, I think everyone kind of had that expectation that Joshua was just going to go in there. We were going to see the old Anthony Joshua, the reckless kind of aggressive AJ. Before Franklin's tailor made. He's going to literally go in there from the first round. In the first shot he lands, he's going to just stick it on Franklin and just unleash combinations, and it's going to be over quickly. I think that was a lot of people's prediction, including myself. But this is not how things transpired at all. I mean, to Franklin's credit, he has got good hand speed. I think his footwork was a bit quicker as well. Franklin did look like someone who actually was coming to win. In fairness to him, every time Joshua did land like a good solid punch, Franklin would kind of fire back with his fast hands. So I mean, it was interesting. I mean, Franklin, I think Franklin deserves a little bit of credit. I don't think he's as bad as people are making out. He definitely got good hand speed, but I think just Joshua, it just wasn't his best performance. I think it's fair to say. But I think that could be as well because we had such an expectation that he was going to just come in and destroy Franklin. But I think the most disappointing thing about Joshua's performance yesterday was that he just didn't really commit. He never really went for the knockout. I mean, when Joshua was up and coming, we saw, we saw him. His combination punching was so good. That was one of the most impressive things about Joshua. His aggression and his combination punching. Like before, like I said, when Joshua landed a punch before, he would just swarm on his opponent and he'd land three or four shots with such speed. And we just didn't see that yesterday. He was kind of pot shotting a lot, throwing in kind of ones and twos. It was a little bit predictable. He was accurate, to be fair. He did hit some nice right hands, showed a few good body shots, few uppercuts. But still, it was very just kind of one punch, one punch, one punch. It wasn't very dynamic. Because Joshua, he used to have a lot of good hand speed himself when he put his punches together, and we just didn't see that. It was a little bit of a just very, I guess, a very cagey affair. As the fight progressed, there was a lot of clinching going on. Franklin did actually tire quite a bit and was coming in and just kind of holding Joshua a lot. Joshua did show good kind of dirty boxing to kind of punch Franklin, like land a few good uppercuts when Franklin came in close, which was good. But again, just a bit of a dull affair. It's fair to say. No one is going to remember that fight. It's just a bit of a dull affair. And I think if you're any of the other fighters in the division, like Fury or Wilder, I mean, I think you've got to be encouraged by that kind of Joshua performance. I mean, you know, he is with a new trainer, with Derek James, but I actually think in comparison to the Usyk fight, I think Joshua actually looked better in the Usyk fight. I know it's easy to say it's a different opponent and stuff, but if I'm thinking about even especially the second Usyk fight, Joshua had more spring in his step, and for me, just he looked very kind of slow yesterday, kind of slow, cautious, and yeah, it just wasn't the most kind of explosive performance. It was very just measured, yeah, measured and cautious. But he got the job done. End of the day, look, the judges' scorecards had it 117-11. Two of them, and Joshua, and the other one had 118-11. He was the deserved victor. He definitely beat Franklin in a more convincing fashion than Dillian White. I mean, Dillian White Franklin was a lot more close. Joshua was definitely the deserved victor, but I think people just have high expectations, and this was meant to be his kind of return party. Because if Joshua was to go, yesterday, come in and literally land a knockout in the first round or second round or third round, we'd be like, okay, Joshua's definitely back. He's back. He can still become a world champion again. Maybe he can't beat Usyk, but he has a chance against Fury. He has a chance against Wilder. But based on yesterday's performance, it's hard to make a case for that. I mean, look, anything can happen in boxing. We have to see what happens. At the end of the day, he did get the job done, but yeah, it just wasn't. It just wasn't really a great watch. I guess another positive is that he did go the full 12 rounds. And that could be another thing as well we need to remember. I mean, Joshua used to kind of not think about that almost. He used to just kind of, unleash and then he'd kind of gas out. He'd done that against Klitschko, done against Pulev. So in the past, he just didn't really think about the full 12 rounds. Now it's almost like he's got more of like a veteran mindset. Like, okay, what if I gas out? So that could be another reason why he's kind of pot shotting a lot and he's not really going, where he never fully went for the kill. But I think everyone can agree that he just does lack that killer instinct. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it is. If it's since the Ruiz fight, I mean, people say since the Ruiz fight, but at the end of the day, he did knock out Kubrat Pulev. So it is interesting with Joshua. I mean, we have to see. I actually think Joshua probably needs one more kind of fight of that kind of level. I mean, someone who he could just he's almost guaranteed to get a good knockout with. Because to be fair to Franklin, he does have a good chin and he has fast hands. So that could be a style that Joshua maybe just struggles with. If it's a slow, lumbering heavyweight, then Joshua probably will do better. And then maybe that's what he needs. Someone who's just slow, lumbering, and who he can just land, who's quite predictable, and he can just land a big knockout and just get his confidence back up. So, on reflection, maybe Franklin wasn't the best person to actually look great against, because Franklin today does have fast hands. He is quick. He is a smaller target. So overall, yeah, let me know, guys, what you think of this performance. I mean, personally, I don't think it was the best performance. Definitely not. I think we expected a lot more from Joshua, but look, he got the job done. He got the job done, and we have to just see what happens from now on. I guess on the brighter note, and also one thing I also want to mention is that Joshua did show a little bit of spite in this fight, which was kind of interesting, but it's kind of like the roles are reversed now. It's like when Joshua was first coming up, he was kind of respectful out the ring and extremely mean in the ring. Like he was ferocious in the ring and then very respectful out the ring. And it's almost like yesterday, it was almost like a little bit of the opposite. In the ring, he was kind of, I would say he was respectful to Franklin. Obviously, it's a fight and he was throwing heavy leather. But it's like he was even more meaner outside the ring. I mean, we saw that a few times, pushing Franklin's head after the round, landing on the bell a few times, and then at the end of the fight, actually having a bit of an altercation there, and that was kind of almost a bit uncharacteristic as well. I mean, usually we see it in boxing after a fight. The fight is usually embraced, and he kind of just pushed Franklin's head as well. And I think that was a sign of frustration, to be honest, from Joshua's. And I don't think that was, I think that was a sign of frustration. I think he knew that he needed kind of a knockout to really get people back on side, and he didn't. So it's really like a kind of a flipping character as well. Now Joshua's becoming a bit more kind of meaner outside the ring and kind of less mean inside the ring, which is quite interesting. On a positive note, Joshua did express that he's willing to fight Tyson Fury next. I mean, I think based on that, if Fury, I mean, Fury Joshua we tried to make that fight previously, but if you're Tyson Fury, I mean, you've got to be looking at that and thinking, okay, then now is the time. I mean, that wasn't a performance by Joshua to send fear into him. So it'd actually be almost surprising at this point if that fight didn't happen. Obviously, there's a lot of politics and there's purses and stuff, but based on that, Fury shouldn't be really, Joshua hasn't got as much of a perceived threat as Usyk based on that. So hopefully, at the very least, I mean, we can say Joshua, didn't fight his best yesterday, but maybe he's going to have like an inadvertently good effect because maybe that performance is actually going to entice Tyson Fury to fight him, and then we can actually see regardless of what you think, Fury Joshua is still going to be one of the biggest British fights of all time. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be too harsh on Joshua as well. I mean, I didn't think that was a great performance, but we have to remember this is a guy who brought British boxing back up. He's, one of the main reasons. He brought British boxing back on the map. And he's he's an Olympic gold medalist, and he's a two-time world heavyweight champion. So in my mind, whatever happens to Anthony Joshua for the rest of his career, he's a British great in my mind because of what he's done. No matter now if he goes on to lose his next fight, whatever happens, he's still a British great, and so is Tyson Fury because they've both achieved a lot. So if them two are gonna fight each other, it's still gonna be a massive fight. But anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you think of the fight. Do you agree? Do you think it was a bit of a lackluster performance by Anthony Joshua? Do you think some of his criticism is a little bit harsh? Do you reckon maybe it's because people were anticipating like such a devastating knockout that people were disappointed? Let me know what you think. And as always, guys, please like and subscribe. Okay, catch you soon. Bye.